Hey guys, I'm Tim.
I'm Bob.
I'm Mike.
Dan.
This is the Board Game Rundown. Today we are going to review Wayfarers of the South Tigris. This is the newest Shem Phillips game.
Yeah.
And for everybody that should know, full disclosure, this is the first Shem Phillips game I have ever played.
That's crazy.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how we allowed that to happen.
Shame.
Yeah, I mean, kind of pointless, but for those that out there that care, right? I've played North Sea. I think a lot of people have played Raiders of the North Sea,
Yep,
right?
I played all three of the first.
All three of the North Sea ones.
Yep.
And I've played Architects of the West Kingdom, and now I've played Wayfarers at South Tigris. So I've played one game
From
from
each
all
one.
three of his trilogies.
Nice.
Yeah,
right?
so this is the first game of the next trilogy? Is that,
Yes, I
is
believe
that
so.
correct?
They're doing a South Tigris. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy, but it usually is.
Right.
It usually
And
is,
I
yeah.
have not played Architects, but I have played and owned Viscounts and Paladins.
Oh, you've played both. Okay, I knew you owned both. I didn't know you had played both. Okay.
Yeah, I own a lot of games I haven't played either.
Right.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, so, mixture of how we came into a Shem Phillips game.
Right, right. And this is Bob's Kickstarter that we are reviewing. So
Yep.
Bob backed this on Kickstarter. It showed up, and he is kind and generous enough this time to let us mess around with his copy.
Yeah.
Show it off.
I'm
Starting
usually pretty
off,
good for
just
that.
going to say this box is bigger than any Garfield Games box I've
Yeah.
seen.
All right,
the
10 out of
West-
10.
Usually the
Easy
first
review.
one, it comes smaller, then they add an expansion that makes a bigger box this size.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
They planned ahead this time, huh?
Yeah, they did. Like, well, let's just give them the big box now.
This does play 1 to 4 players, says 13 and up.
Yep.
60 to 90 minutes, probably closer to 90.
Closer to 90. I mean, it was your guys' first game, a little bit of learning going on, but it does take a while because it's not a predetermined end time. You're going to play until somebody reaches the end
Right,
of the track.
right.
And it, as the game goes on, it gets like very crunchy.
Yeah.
Like the decisions here get tougher and tougher and tougher.
Yeah, they're
And so
satisfying, though.
That game starts dragging out a bit towards the end. Not necessarily in a negative way, but it's
No, it
kinda
just
like,
gets longer.
Right.
It just
Sure,
gets
sure.
longer. And I was just going to kind of reach into that a little bit, is that even though our play took longer than 90 minutes, it really only felt like 90 minutes. Like when we played,
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all.
I never felt like this game drug
Yeah.
the whole time we
Yeah,
played.
it kind of has that Dune Imperium-ness to me, to where I know you haven't played much, but like Bob and I have played a bunch, and Dune Imperium honestly plays kind of long because it's so crunchy and really thinky and stuff. And as
Doesn't
people
feel
are
it,
approaching that 10th point, you're trying to like make sure that you can get there first, kind of thing, and
Right.
so slowing people down. But the game never feels long. It never overstays its welcome.
Yeah.
So to go into a little bit of the gameplay a little bit. So on your turn, you're going to be either placing a die, placing a worker, or resting. So there's really only the three things you can do. But it does make it so that you can like really stretch your turns out.
Oh,
and, like,
yeah.
and, like between the I'm all out of dice. Well, I can place a worker now, and then when I place the worker, it's like it gives me some dice back. I'm gonna roll that, add it to my pool, so now I can place a dice again.
Yeah,
You can
Dan
really
was doing
extend
his
your
tapestry
turns.
strategy.
He
where
was,
it's like,
yeah.
or Lords of Hellas. I'm going to go as long as I can until
resting.
without pulling all my
Not
work.
necessarily effective in this game at all.
I
but,
did that as well.
but I wanted to see how long I could go
Yeah.
without resting.
But so you're gonna have dice placement spots, right? And those are gonna be like those right there, where you place the dice at. The worker placement spots are all these cards around the table. And what's neat is on the places is there's these different colors, and those are the different colored workers that could be placed there. So one worker being there doesn't necessarily block the location, from anybody else going there. And the other unique thing about this game is the workers aren't really yours. Like once you put a worker
Yeah,
out
that
there,
blew my
other
mind.
people can take those workers when they take the card, and now they've got the workers. There was a time when Dan had like 6 workers, I had like 6 workers, and they didn't have hardly any at all. And that was
Didn't matter.
It didn't matter because there were still other things that you can do, which makes it super interesting.
Yeah, and I want to just point out something real quick there
Yeah.
too, right? And this was really fascinating, and Dan explained it really well. Is that for example, over here on these spaces, it's a worker symbol shape, right? But it's cut in half, where basically half of it is green, half of it is blue, which means you can place a green or a blue worker there. But once a
Right.
green worker's there, that green spot is full. Now it can only take a blue worker.
Correct.
And so these ones on the end have all 3, and then there's just kind of varying levels.
Like green, blue, yellow, green, or just green.
And then
only.
then like Bob was saying, right? So when you take that worker, you put it here. It doesn't do anything for the card. The card is basically the action space, but you're going to resolve the effect above it. But then what's awesome is that when somebody buys that card, they're getting all the workers on that card.
Correct.
And that blew me away.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that was super cool. Like, and again, I've never played a Shem Phillips game, so I have not
Right.
seen a game manipulate workers.
Right, which he
You know,
does
the
quite
way-
a bit.
the
Yeah.
way
It tends to be what he does. You
It's
know?
his thing. He's really good at
It's
it.
super cool. You
All
know?
of them have their own unique twist on worker placement.
all
They're
feel
all
different.
fascinating.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to kind of dig into that while we were
Sure,
there
sure.
on that part, because I thought that was really neat, and really just from my own personal experience, kind of wanted to highlight that.
Right. Well, and then if somebody has some of these like influence markers on some of those cards, then if anybody wants to interact with that card as far as putting a worker on it, buying that card, or activating the worker, they have to pay whoever has the influence on that person either
Yes.
a silver or a provision, which is super cool. And then you have, so when you roll your dice, you have a little caravan spot up top, Dan, if you want to point to that caravan spot. And so those are going to be things like your dice are going to have the effects that are on there. So there's a camel and there's a telescope to start with. But then as you buy these upgrade tiles, those will cover up the spaces on the board. Now, when you roll those numbers, you're going to have those extra symbols that you can use your dice for, because some of the dice spots are going to require you to have a camel or to have a boat or to have all those different types of things. And so that's how you can manipulate your dice, because there's like, dice plus, dice minus on there, so you can change the values of your dice to mitigate what you roll. And then you're also going to be moving up this splotch paper. I forget what they call that, the journaling. And so every time that you move up the journal, you can spend influence from like this black area to move up extra spots. You have to meet the requirements to move past them. The iconography is super strong as far as like telling you like what the zones are, like
Yes.
harbors or seas, the different types of like observatories or mountain spots.
And don't feel bad if you try to take a card you can't, like 7 times.
Over and over.
Only because
Tim, that doesn't match.
the iconography clearly explained, very obvious.
Very obvious. Tim, oblivious.
I think also when you were talking about the iconography, we all had questions about the scoring cards. So there's a little bit of
the scoring cards are a
uncertainty.
little.
They can be a little tricky. There's-
tricky to decipher. and
There's
everything.
a little bit of nuance
Yeah.
with that.
But all of these games are entirely language independent, so
Correct.
it's only icons.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
fascinating.
And the rule
Fascinating
book
point.
does explain the cards. You
You
just
just
have
got
to find
it.
it.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
just
I thought
it's
you were
not
going to
laid
say
out very well.
also language independent. So
Yeah, it's got really good references to all those icons.
Yeah. So the townsfolk, you'll gain them, and they'll like go underneath your different land cards to like upgrade those abilities and to make them stronger. So when they proc or you take those abilities, they will make it a little bit more convenient. And then you have the space cards. And the space cards are going to go above your land and sea areas to earn you victory points. Those are going to be used a lot for the end game. Just like I think 99% of the other Shem Phillips games, that little flag icon with a number on there is signifying your victory points.
if it works, it works.
Yeah, yeah. But no, then so you have these little turrets here with the little asterisks. That just means you're going to be placing influence in those areas. If you see a slash through that, then you're going to have to spend the influence in order to do that. So that's a simple icon to notice.
Well, the slash was either or, right? You either spend 3
No,
coins
I meant like see how
or...
you can see that the turret has a little slash through the turret.
Oh, I see.
That means spend, right? So this
Oh,
means
I
gain,
see.
That
I
means
see.
spend.
I got you now.
Yeah,
I
Tim
got
gets
you.
it now. Now that we're done playing.
Yeah. 3 days later.
Oh, yeah.
So we have an interesting mix of worker placement and tableau building, basically
Yeah.
going in here. As you're literally, you're building a giant panoramic that is like what your explorers are discovering.
Your
at
wayfarers.
Right, right.
I just want to stick
Turns
to
out
this.
synonyms exist.
Hey, listen, I'm using the terms on the box.
Right. As cards are taken, they slide down and are replaced like that, which means that the cards out are constantly changing the worker placement spot that they're associated with. That's always an interesting thing going on to there. And then, yeah, just the fact that, as Bob mentioned earlier, the fact that all the workers are purposely universal colors. Like everyone starts with a yellow and blue, and that's because those aren't your workers. They're just the ones you start with, and they will constantly change hands. It's a very interesting way of
Bob, point this. I want you to point this out. Throw those over there. I'm going to talk about those while you do that. So
the
the way that the water cards work, the sea cards, whatever you want to call them, exactly. The way those work is that they're going to line up, and they've got these tabs on the sides. And if those tabs sort of go together to make like a bigger thing, then that's an instant bonus you can get.
Correct.
And that definitely influenced my decision on which one I
ones
was
to
going
buy.
which one I was going to take, because what's really neat is unlike some other games where like maybe the ones closer to the draw deck are more
Cheaper,
expensive or
right.
cheaper, right? And the things still slide over, but it doesn't necessarily get cheaper.
Doesn't affect the cost.
Except for the space cards.
Sure.
The space cards are the only one, but those are more like high point, end game point sort of stuff.
Right.
So it makes sense that
The newer ones cost a little more the first time they're out.
right, because you might reach a little bit to get something to fill a set, you know, that you're looking for, maybe give you an icon, whatever. But anyways, I just thought that was really interesting.
How
that
that kind of builds on each other. And
how your cards
sprawls
can
out.
build on each other. I've only ever seen that in like Tainted Grail.
Right,
It's
the
only other
combat system, yeah.
that I've seen that happen, and I thought it was neat there. And this is a really completely different way to do that, but still, you know, in spirit, a similar thing. And I thought it was super cool. But hey, I just wanted to show that
Yeah, no,
off
you're
real
good.
quick.
There's still another major action that we didn't get into that's a big part of this game is the whole like inkwell system, where we're starting with our guys on the left side of the board here, and each time you get an inkwell, if you have the correct prerequisites, you're working your way across the right. And that's actually one of your in-game triggers.
That's how
is
you.
getting
That's the only way to trigger it.
all the that's
It's
the
for one
getting
person.
all the way to the end. But there's unlocks as you go through this. It
Mm-hmm.
kind of reminded me a little bit of Lost Ruins of Arnak, kind of
Yeah,
that
the research track. Mm-hmm.
Except this one, you got to have the prerequisites. You don't necessarily spend them, but you've got to have 2 of these cards in your tableau to
Right.
move to that part, and that's you get free workers out of it.
For that
You
first one
also,
there, yeah.
as you move up, you'll be able to gain additional dice as well, because you start with 3. There's 2 more along this track as you work your way right. So it's really important to beat people on this ink pot track to get your extra dice and to get additional workers for free.
I never beat anybody on that inkwell track. I'm just gonna say.
Who
But
finished it? I thought you did.
Dan
did.
finished it, and then I got right there at the
Yeah,
end too.
he
I
was
could've,
on
but
the
it
way.
wasn't
I
gonna
got-
give me any extra
I got
points.
close to the end, but then opted not to go any further because there was really going to be no benefit because you're
Correct.
looking at like points you're giving up versus. But again, a really interesting thing though was I was in my own happy little world. I'm building my engine. I'm watching everybody move up, and I'm like, holy crap! I've got to now start doing that, and that actually made my engine better because I was starting to focus on this part of the board and to get the sets that I needed, right? Like 2 mountains so that I could then
Correct.
pass that. But like the crazy thing was by doing that, it had kind of set up some other things. And then next thing I know, I was like, there's no way I'm getting past, you know, or even close to the end. But then all of a sudden I started actually working towards some of these sets. The next thing I knew, I was in position not to end it, but to get very close, you know, and get far along. And so I was really impressed with that. Like, it's almost like they give you a tool in the game, use it, right?
Right.
And not only it didn't feel forced, and I didn't feel like I had to stop playing the game I was playing to do it, but it actually enhanced my game
Give you a little guidance a little bit.
by doing it. And I set up a decent engine to start, and then was fine to run with that later because I ended up really not needing the extra workers because of the other things that I had built in my tableau. But just really interesting, super important. I don't know that you've got to be the guy to finish it.
But you need to make some progress.
But you definitely need to make some progress to have an effective game. But really interesting.
Sure. The game just continues one action per person over and over again to either place a worker or place a die until you decide to rest is the third thing you can do, and that just gets you all your dice back. Basically, you re-roll them and you can start over. And in this game, as Bob alluded to earlier, it's like Tapestry to where I take my rest whenever I feel like it. Doesn't affect anyone else. So everyone's rounds are individual. It doesn't matter. You just keep going until someone reaches the end point of the game. But that is basic gameplay.
And if you spend enough of your dice, if you're down to 1 or 2 die when you rest, you do get an income.
Bonuses.
Typically, you get a bonus.
You
Yep.
get an income sort of thing, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much how the game's played. Do we want to go into components?
Yeah.
no.
Okay. Let's go to final thoughts then. All right, so components. This now, full disclosure, right? This is a Kickstarter version, and I didn't look at the Kickstarter, so I don't know what's different from this, other than maybe the metal coins.
coins.
I feel like everything looked pretty standard.
Yep.
Insert.
No, I think the insert is standard.
Nice.
But I'll give it a quick look over here as I can manage to figure out how to get this.
Yeah, insert's really cool.
It's pretty cool, but I got to be honest.
Little tight.
Yeah,
Get these guys outta
that's
here.
that same issue I've always had with the Lords of Waterdeep insert. When things are so tight like that, it just I don't know. Maybe I just have sausage fingers.
I
Who
have
knows?
never.
It doesn't matter. You have sausage fingers regardless.
I have never had that problem in Lords of Waterdeep.
Yeah.
And if anything, it doesn't hold anything tight
Putting
enough.
them all in there and then they just come exploding out.
I do
what's
want to
that,
say. Sorry. The biggest complaint about this, besides the difficulty getting the things out of there, is there's nothing that covers the whole box to hold everything.
There's no
down.
vacuum seal.
There's no there's no plastic thing that goes over the top. The board's not the perfect size to fit the whole thing. The book's not the perfect size to fit the whole thing. So there's always like an inch around either way that like stuff could kind of fall out if you tip your box.
That's a good call. It's a very weird design that the board is just like a half an inch too
Yeah.
small to protect everything.
They should have just made like a clear plastic like overlay thing to put over
Sure.
all of it, and then everything go on top of it and hold it all down.
Well, it's one of those weird cases where the board is smaller than the box size.
Yes.
Now, had they gone with their normal Garfield box size, the
probably
board
would've
would have
been
filled
perfect,
it, and
yeah.
the components wouldn't slide
so
all
the
over.
box is normally
when you store
more
it
closer to
vertically,
this
which
size.
is-
yeah, because it's they're 3 different pieces.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is
So
really-
this is the
This-
biggest piece.
this
so that's
size.
still not quite big enough
So
to
the
fill the box.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so the biggest issue, if you're a vertical box storage person, like
Correct.
a lot of people are, stuff's going to go flying out of this box.
Yeah.
Well, all over the place.
And just so you know, where you see us kind of moving this around, all 3 of these are double-sided, so you can kind of like change up the cost.
These are
and,
some of the
Yeah,
player
randomizes.
It
components,
randomizes a little
coins
bit
and
to make it a little bit different.
provisions.
So,
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a little interesting, a little bit of variety in each gameplay, which is kind of nice.
Sure. So I guess
shot
making it
was
modular
the
would explain why it's not like a
panoramic.
trifold. And I guess
Exactly.
also this
Correct.
is cheaper
Yeah,
to
I'm sure,
produce
I'm
anyways.
sure it is.
Which is and honestly probably helps your game last longer too, right? Because when you got the trifold, if you're,
Yeah,
you're
sure.
manipulating it,
Sure.
it can.
Just don't play it like an
Bob,
accordion.
what'd you think of the rule
Yeah,
book? You were in it the
boring.
most.
Yeah, so I don't care much for the size. It's pretty
It's not a
It's
huge
not
square, at
huge,
least.
but it's just like, okay, if you're not going to make it the size to cover the board and hold everything in the box, then just make it like so it doesn't take up quite as much.
It's the
surface
size of their
area.
their other games.
I know,
is what's
I know,
Funny.
I know. But anyways, the organization's not great. Like the information you need is in there, but finding it can be super tricky. It's like, oh, you're trying to figure out like when the cards replenish. It's in like there's not like a whole like turn overlap where it says, okay, here's where you replenish all the cards. It's in the part where it talks about taking cards, and then it just says at the last sentence it says, cards are filled after people take them, but it's only in the acquiring cards section. It's not in like the turn overview, which just seems weird to me.
Right. It felt like they were testing out a new rule book method or something. Because like usually, and listen, I'm not saying like never change, like it's perfect
This is
now
the way it
kind of
must
thing,
be.
right? But like normally it's just that you have a turn breakdown and it will say like upkeep and it will explain upkeep. And then worker placement and it will explain worker placement, dice placement. And this one, it just like says, here's all the things you can do. And then just kind of slowly over the next couple pages starts individually talking about things.
Yeah, you need a
And-
breakdown with bullet points.
Right, and I get that is like you can go more in depth if worker placement has an entire 2 pages left to it later in the book. But not talking about it like at all when it first talks about worker placement just makes it annoying to be like, okay, let's go over turns. Like, okay, this is our first time playing the game. Let's just go over the rounds and stuff like this. Okay, first, you can place a die. Okay, well, how does that work? Flip through the pages, get to the, okay, you can blah, 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 blah. Oh, you want to place a worker instead? Yep, that's the second thing you can do. Oh, gotta find the page where you do that. And instead of just being in normal order that you would do it in.
Or having like at the end, game end, here's a breakdown of how all these cards score and things like that. That would have been nice to have a little bit of an interpretation. On
That's
that.
true too. There is not like an
Summary
index you would
index,
find you would
yeah.
find at the end. It's more like when it talks about space cards, it explains how they score.
So-
and that makes sense, but that's not where players are going to naturally look.
Right, they're
for
gonna go.
that.
Oh, it's end game. Let me go to the end game spot. Oh, there just says, "Yep, count those up." Okay, well, how does that interpret?
So
yeah,
do other Shem Phillips games, are their rule books similar to this then?
it's been a while since I've had to actually go to a
Yeah, I don't know.
Can't remember.
I played Architects years ago, and I did not have a problem learning
Right.
it on the spot, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't. It just,
And this is way more complicated than any of the other ones I
That's
played.
true too. There's a lot going on here
I guess-
compared to
I-
Architects
This is
and Raiders.
deeper
North
than
Seas, yeah.
Paladins, but Paladins is medium plus. I thought it was pretty easy to learn.
I'm just asking because there's some game companies that I know, like the rule book is going to be rough, but the game's going to be good. Like, let's just get through the rule book, and then the game. We'll all enjoy the game, but like, you've got to really. Somebody's
through
got to
it.
fist fight through that rule book, as best they can.
But what helps is the iconography is excellent.
Yes, it
and they
is.
always are in all these games because
Well-
they have to be. They're completely language independent.
And
So-
I had the benefit of being taught this game, and I never asked to look at the rule book. I did ask for a couple clarifications here and there, right? What's this do? What does this mean?
Which we lied to you.
And totally fine. Worked out really well. but so if somebody teaches you this game, no problem.
Yeah.
No problem. But some poor soul might be the one to have
have to go through that. One of the things I do really appreciate for people who like a lot of like the meta knowledge as they're trying to make decisions and whatnot, in the middle of the board, it's got a breakdown of like how many planet cards, how many sun cards, how many star cards, how many
not
harbor
like a
cards.
number, but it shows
Correct,
you
a
basic
visual
percentages,
representation. Yeah, like
kind of.
they're like 50-50 this.
I like
you
that
know?
better.
Yeah.
I like that better.
Right. So it's an idea, but it's not absolute
And
knowledge.
honestly,
not
like
perfect
I
knowledge.
just like to be surprised.
Yeah.
I don't need to know.
Well, right, but if you're like, oh, I'm going to build this library strategy, and you're like, man, where are they all at? And you look and you realize, like, oh, there's only like this many.
I'm glad I'm just now
Well,
realizing that exists. But no, that's cool. I'm glad that's right on the board.
I guess we might as well show that off, Bob. It does have that, the back of page.
Sure, yeah.
It does have that, which is nice. It shows what the basic icons mean. It does not go in depth on the scoring and stuff. Like, that's what we were complaining about a second ago. But that is nice. And I don't want to give too much credit because that should be in every game ever made.
Yes.
But,
A
you know,
back page
it's
It
nice.
is helpful.
You know,
Yeah, it's helpful.
thanks
No,
for-
they did
thanks
that
for
right.
doing it.
If we're gonna crap on the book for things that did
Right.
poorly, let's point out where they
Well, it
did
did good.
right.
It did do that good.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'd like to shift to the art because it's from the Miko. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I love his art. I think it's excellent in every game he's ever done, and he does almost all, if not all, of Shem Phillips' games.
Yep.
And this is no exception. The art is fantastic on the cards. It's a linen finish on all the cards
Yeah.
as well, so they're very high quality.
I'm actually not going to lie. I don't love his art. Don't get me wrong. I don't dislike it, but I'm not like infatuated with it or something. I do think this is the best game that has it. I just think it really fits in with the vistas and with this, like the planets and stuff. I think it looks really good with that style compared to like Architects of the West Kingdom. Like, I just think it fits this world better. I don't know why.
I really liked his art. We recently reviewed Endless Winter.
Right.
That's probably my favorite adaptation of his art. I think it fits that theme extremely well.
So he did the same person did the art for that did this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just look at the cover for a second and you can tell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's instant. Yeah, just look the way the faces are
it's
drawn.
pretty
these
obvious.
It's these guys.
But they're winter
Put some white,
jackets.
put some extra white on there. Endless
Yeah.
one.
Some snow.
Snow,
Snow.
white at the bottom.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
But I get it. You know, art is subjective, so it's not for everybody. But I've always been a
Right.
big fan of his art.
No. Go on.
No, I was just gonna mention. I didn't know if we were still want to talk about art, but we also
Yes.
just hadn't mentioned, nice linen cards. Hadn't mentioned it yet. They're fine.
I do like also though how the art, like, because you're building this like panoramic view and all like the land, like it
Mostly.
mostly lines up. So
Mostly.
this looks like one continuous horizon.
At the end of the game, I found myself actually looking at everybody's tableau just to see how differently it looked. Not anything else other than, oh, cool, he's got a monument built in there, and he's got a planet that looks like Jupiter in it, and then multiple planets with rings on them. And I found myself fascinated by the picture that you're building when you build this game. And because of that, the art stands out to me more than it does than games of this style.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciated the consistency of the art. I think it's because I also like Ryan Lockett games, right? And like he does all the art for all of his games. And while I like his art better, I do think that there's something to be said for like having this running theme through all of the games you do, and even if it's just the artwork, you know what I mean? And like
That common thread.
yeah, that common thread, and it's I like all the colors they use. You know, I'm kind of with Dan. Like, I think like the caricature versions isn't necessarily to my taste, but I don't think they're bad and they don't bother me. You know, but I do
Their
think
chins aren't pointy.
yeah.
I was waiting back. He beat me to it.
I just feel like I should be, like that. I've complained
good.
about that on Dice Throne. Like,
know.
I don't like the
We
Dice
know.
Throne art. But I think that I like the colors and the style. I like the landscapes quite a bit, to be honest. And the planets I think look cool.
The colors, not an issue.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That's super important.
Yep.
Resident
Super important.
colorblind player.
Yep. Yeah. Yellows, blues, greens, blacks.
But there's no red.
Piece of cake.
And,
Yeah,
and
there's
that's
no red.
And that would be the wrench, right? Like if we were going to go with this, the red would be
So,
the
yeah.
issue. No, that's
Well
great.
done with that.
That's great. No, I mean it's all consistently seems very well made. Now the metal coins are Kickstarter, but they're cool.
They're very
I
nice.
like them.
Yeah,
They
they're
got,
weighty.
and then you've just got these generic supplies.
Which is like a Shem Phillips standard.
Right.
A good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Provisions.
I think they're provisions.
you could. I think doesn't Stonemeyer somebody's got a little
Little
a little bag.
I'm thinking about it.
Which you could do if you wanted to, but by no means do you need to.
No, not at all.
You probably don't need to sleeve it because the cards don't get shuffled or handled a ton.
Yeah, you're not holding them in your hand. You're not shuffling them a lot. Yeah, I wouldn't even bother sleeving.
You put them right down in front of you, and there they go. Right.
Every deck gets shuffled at the start of every game, and then that's it.
Yep. What's kind of nice is if you do upgrade those provisions, you just kind of leave them, off to the side instead of in the box, and then it doesn't matter what Shem Phillips game you play.
Right.
There's your fancy
because
bits
he
for it.
always
it's all the same good.
You just have a Shem Phillips box somewhere that upgrades every game.
Upgrade
We're
bits.
playing a Shem Phillips. I'll grab my Shem Phillips upgrade box.
Upgrade kit. Yeah.
Let me get my Shemmy. And that's it.
Boy.
Wow. Nope. So anyway,
Shem, wow.
Does anybody else have anything on components?
Negative Ghost
I
Rider.
don't think
Okay.
so.
Okay. All right. Let's go into final thoughts.
So I was really impressed with this
Yeah.
game. I've played it twice, and both times I was just kind of blown away with how different it felt, and I was just like, man, I just love when you can play like a worker placement game, and you're just like, I think I said while I was playing this, and this is just such a highlight for me when I can say this, and I was just like, how are people still coming up with cool ideas? I've played so many worker placement games, and then I play this and nothing does what it does, and that's so cool to see in the industry, doing these mechanics that are so basic, and yet every single time, and this is his specialty, but every single time it blows my mind with how it's implemented. Even just a tiny thing is just like, no one's done that before, and it really does make the game feel different. But I thoroughly enjoyed the tableau building out the panoramic, and I really like the worker placement. How far can I, how effective can I make each of my rounds before I have to rest? It's just a really cool feeling, cool mechanic. My big negative for the game, and this is just a personal thing for me, this is one of the reasons I subliminally like Yu-Gi-Oh! More than Magic the Gathering, is I just played this super crunchy worker placing game for 2 hours, and the most points was in the 40s. And that just feels like you didn't accomplish anything. Especially,
So they just added zeros to all of that. You'd be fine with that?
yes, this has been my argument for Yu-Gi-Oh! Versus Magic the Gathering. I like that in Yu-Gi-Oh! I have 8,000 health, and in Magic you have 20. I like that.
We'll play. We have 200.
I get it.
Magic,
I get it.
and we'll add a
It's
zero.
purely
And Bob will
mental.
still
It
beat
is.
you in
And that
15
is
minutes.
what I'm pointing out, is that mental thing makes a difference for me. Especially because I played this 2-hour crunchy worker placement game. We got like 35 points or something, 33 points. And then I immediately afterwards played Nidavellir, which is a 15-minute card game, and I had 270 points.
Sure, but you played Clank Catacombs for like almost 2 hours, and you had 0 at the end.
Yeah, and that didn't feel good. I didn't walk away from that being like, wow, that was an awesome
Mister,
experience.
you had 0 points.
That's
too.
not the fact I know all of that. I'm just saying.
But I'm just saying that's purely a mental thing that other people may not care
Sure.
about. But if you
Yeah.
feel that way like me, this game will have that little bit of a letdown at the end of the
Maybe
game.
you
where
just outed us for all doing really badly.
Really poorly.
That's possible. I meant to look up beforehand. It's just
average
a brand
score
new
is.
game, but I meant to
Yeah.
look that up. I just didn't think that would exist, so I didn't bother.
Sure.
But yeah, I wanted to look up what an average score is because, yeah, it was our second game for some of us. I'm sure that we can get more points than that, but still, I didn't feel like we did terribly and we got around 40. So even if we can get up to like 60, that's a better feeling thing. But it's just for how many tough decisions, and there's no scoring during the game at all. So you have no idea how good or bad you're doing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. That tension
You
of
can kinda
not
mentally
knowing,
tabulate, but-
sure, but that tension of not really knowing who's winning as you're playing can be a good thing. But still, it's just every decision you make is stressful and rough, and yet you're like, I don't know if that even got me any points. I don't know if this did this. I don't know. And then you just get to the end and you're like, okay, after all that, I got, 27
I got
points.
this many.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I just, it was a little underwhelming at the end, especially because the end scoring's a bit mathy and a bit
little
crunchy
bit.
of like trying to make sure you
Calculate
add everything
everything.
up possible. There's multipliers and like making sure you do all that. So I thought it was an amazing experience until Endgame, and then I was just a little let down with how that felt. Yeah.
Well, it is also one of those games too where you could trigger endgame and not win.
Yeah, no, and that's a great mechanic.
Yes,
Excellent.
That's going to start being a catchphrase.
it is. Dan triggered Endgame and did not win.
Anyway,
His favorite mechanic.
that's all I'll say until someone else mentions something I disagree with, and I'll jump in.
Fair enough. Mike, why don't you go next? See if you can't make Dan mad.
This game feels tight because of the low scoring. I don't think it needs to be a point salad game. And in fact, one of my favorite games of all time,
Is point
Concordia, where you do not know what people score. You don't score a single point throughout the entire game, and then you add everything up at the very end. So I kind of like the tension of not knowing exactly who's winning, and I think just more experience with the game will give you a better idea of who's winning as you play it more. I am really fascinated with all the different ways you could play this game. I mean, just the manipulation you have available on your player board. I could say, you know what, I need a lot of ships this round, so I'm going to see if I can get every single one of my dice to give me a ship. Or I've got a worker placement spot where I need 2 ships for it, so I'm going to make my 5 give me 2 ships every time I roll a 5. Or I'm going heavy, and ships are all of the water cards. I could go heavy on the camel strategy and just keep grabbing stuff that makes my dice give me camels and build out this side of my board. And then, of course, there's the planet strategy, which I think you have to dabble into some extent because that is the primary way to score points. But there's different types of those type of cards. I like the different ways that these cards work off of each other. Like all of these yellow cards tuck under your other cards, and it depends if they have a brown bottom or a gray bottom. All of the blue cards build off to the right and have instant effects, plus effects you can use for ships. And then the left side of your board is all these camel cards, and they again have better worker placement spots, and then more cards you can tuck underneath, and then scoring cards, and then cards that modify
Upgrade
your
your
scoring
scoring
cards.
cards.
And the way these cards work together really, really makes a crunchy package. And it's amazing how this game is AP prone. I mean, I don't care who you are, all of us at one point, like you're thinking about your turn the entire time. It's not your turn. And it comes back to you and you're like, I still don't know what to do yet. It just, there's so many options. I mean, you've got, you could have 4 or 5 dice available. They're capable of being put in multiple spots on your player board. But if you've got workers, there's another 8 other worker placement spots available to you. I mean, there's 16 worker placement spots, and you could have 12 of those available to you on your turn, plus the dice. So there's a lot to consider on your turn, and I like that because these mechanisms are really interesting, and the way they work off of each other, it makes a really enjoyable experience. I really like this game a lot. I'd venture to say after 2 plays, I already like this better than Paladins and Viscounts. I'm really impressed with this. For me, Raiders of the North Sea was my least favorite of all of those. But Raiders of the North Sea was the first one that had that, okay, you place a worker out. Well, when you place another later in the game, you can pull a worker and get the benefit. Well, this one, if you buy the card, you draw the workers. Plus, there's even worker placement spots where its action is pull some workers. And that kind of ebb and flow of, okay, I'm running low on dice and I'm low on workers. Do I want to just go ahead and rest this round and get my stuff back? Or, well, no, I got 1 less worker. I could pull 2 workers back and extend this round a little bit. All of that is just really, really fascinating. There are some awesome systems in this game. I was really impressed with this.
Bobby.
Yeah, similar along what Mike was saying. Like, I like how you can just keep extending your turn, right? Like, oh, I placed all my dice, but I still have workers left. I'm going to place my worker here, pull this dice off, pull a dice off my board, roll it. Now I can take that die, place it on another spot that lets me remove another die, roll that die, and you can just kind of keep,
So yeah, by
along.
your future turn, right? Like, well, now I got this die, I can use this die again. Now, I bought this card. Now it just gave me some workers.
Right, and then you can also, like, one of the cool things that you can do is you can upgrade your rest action. So now it's like you try to keep extending your turn, and building up your rest action. So when you finally do rest, now you're triggering like 4 or 5 different abilities that you get to do, and it just explodes everything and makes so much more happen. And I like that.
That was one of the things I purposely really focused last time we played, because I was like, I just want to see what it's like if someone just has like 7 things proc on their rest action. I just think that's really cool. But I was also at the same time going for the strategy of resting. So anyway, Bob, shut up. Continue.
Yeah, Dan was going with the cocaine strategy. No sleep. I'm just gonna keep going.
Keep going. No resting. But if I did, it'd be really good. But no, like I really appreciated that about it. These cards here that they tuck above your space cards, and then like so they have a condition on them. If you meet those conditions, it'll double the amount of points you get off the space card. I got 0 of those. I wish I would have had more because I probably would have had a much better score.
Oh, those are purposely really difficult to achieve.
I
They are
also
very
have
hard to
Some
get.
are tough.
Yeah. But it's like just something else. It's really cool, and these spaces over here are
These
powerful.
are so powerful.
Yeah,
They're really
so it ends
powerful.
up being a lot of workers over here. So if you do get to draft one of those cards, you get a bunch of workers back. I like that you can try to shoot up the track to get all your extra stuff, but then if you trigger the end game too soon, you might not win. So I think that's what I got up there to know where I could trigger it. Then Dan's like catching way up to me, and he's like, "Oh crap, he can trigger it too." I was like, "I want to take 2 more turns, but I think Dan's gonna trigger the end game."
And then I was sitting there and I was like, I don't really want to trigger the end game, but Bob wants to take 2 more turns. I will not allow this.
Yeah. So I really enjoy this game. I love how you can manipulate your dice and you can change like every game. Remember what you can be like, oh, I'm gonna make my 4s this time. I'm gonna use one of these space tiles. Now my 4s give me every single icon. So
Yeah, I
can
got
place
that
the die
early, and it
anywhere
was
you
a
want.
game
And then I
breaker.
put the pluses and minuses on either side. So now my 2s and 3s can be 4s. My 5s and 6s can be 4s. So anything that's garbage to me is a 1. 3 1s. I tried, and it's like
Yeah, but even then, right?
there's
Like,
places to go to manipulate the dice where you
were-
could try
yes.
to add pips to it. There's these guys here where you add influence, and not only is it an area majority at the end of the game for some victory points, but they all have abilities. So you can remove an influence to gain a ship icon. You can remove influence there to get
To swing your pips around,
Swing your
yeah.
pips around. You can remove these guys here to move up extra slots when you go to move up the inkwells. Like it's just a lot of different things that you can do, and the actions that are upgrading and everything that's available. It's just I really enjoyed the crunch that there was on this game.
yeah, there's a lot here. And again, it's kind of like Bob was saying, but even then, right? I rolled 3 1s. I really needed like this to be like a 2. You know what I mean? Because if it was just a 2, well, then what I do is with one action, one of those ones, I get something that allows me to then make my next one a 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or something. And there's just ways that you can
Ways around it.
You can swing
You're
it
not just
around.
gonna screw yourself over because you can't roll a die well.
Yeah.
Or there's a worker placement spot where you can re-roll a die and then adjust 2 of them. So
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
lots of ways to manipulate.
So yeah, I came in probably least excited about this only because I'd never played a Shem Phillips game.
Shame.
And I've only ever heard good things, but at the same time, it was just never really convenient to play one. They were
Right.
also like super highly hyped, and sometimes
Excuses.
that's a negative for me. It's like, nah, I get around to it and I get around to it.
They deserve it, Tim, just so you know.
Listen,
Excuses.
I'm a old Gen X hipster. Like, ugh, everybody likes that. That must suck.
That's right. This is terrible.
True.
Why? Because everybody
Right.
likes it.
No other reason.
Yeah.
No other reason.
You know, Tim, that everyone breathes oxygen.
Ugh.
That's why this sucks.
But anyways, I sat down. This game was explained to me. You guys did a really good job teaching. You came in with a really good grasp of it, but also it lends itself once you understand
Icons.
how the icons work. The worker placement aspect of it, like the dual nature of the workers and the dice and the way that those all work, freaking blew my mind. Now I know it's not a unique thing because Shem Phillips apparently does crazy things with his workers all the time, but I thought this was great. Like I really I was just like, that's amazing. I kind of enjoyed not knowing what the score was until the end because I was assuming I was doing terribly, but I was having a good time playing.
Right.
In all fairness, you always assume that.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's because most of the time it's true.
You're
So
almost
it's
as bad as
erring on the
Spencer.
side of the probability.
Yeah, but I don't complain about it. I don't complain.
I didn't say anything.
I don't complain for 20 minutes about how I'm losing this game and then go, oh, I guess I won.
Yeah.
Spencer, please stop. But no, I like when we started to count up, I'm like, oh, I bet I did terribly, and then it was like only 45 points or whatever I had. And then it turns out that
almost
was
double everybody
that
else.
was the winning score. I'm like, sorry guys, I didn't mean to do that. But no, I thought this was really cool. I appreciated everything that this brought to the table. I think the only problem for me in this game, and this is a me thing and not anybody else, is like, you've got it, right? Mike will probably end up with this game if he doesn't already
Right.
have it.
We'll see when you hear my rating.
Yeah. Nobody, like, outside of playing with you guys, I've got nobody to play this with.
Sure.
So
Right.
for me, I don't need to own this game.
Right.
And that's not always a negative.
Right.
Because
There's
Spoiler alert.
There's 2 copies in your thing.
You don't need to own every game. That is something I needed to learn.
Okay, let's mark the time. We're at 41 minutes into this video. Tim has just said that you don't need to own every game. So Kelly, you might want to keep that in your back
Listen,
pocket.
I'm going through the process of making a culling stack. But yeah, so for me, it's like, well, this game's great. I would love that. And it's like, well, who am I going to play it with? Bob. Oh, wait, Bob's got it.
Exactly.
Who am I going to play with? Mike. Mike probably will have this. I'm just going to guess. You know, and be like, oh, who am I going to play with? Dan? Hey, Dan, let's go to Bob's.
Well, spoiler alert. Mike said he likes this more than the 2 Shem Phillips games he
already
has. Yeah.
so.
But you know, and that's not a negative, but I would say that. But who knows? Maybe the solo mode kicks ass. You know.
Correct. Yeah, I haven't dug into that at all. So.
But I was really pleased with 4 players with a teach. I think it took us 2 hours, but it didn't even feel like 2 hours.
Right.
You know, this flew by. Even everybody. I don't even. It was almost lucky if Bob had AP because that gave me
a second
like 2 more minutes to go over my turn.
Yeah.
You know, or like there might have been a few times where I'm just like, okay, just don't take that card so I can do it. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to take my turn really quick and everything.
But
But
you took the card I wanted. Now I got to take 20 minutes to think about what I want to do again.
But even then, you know, it wasn't that bad, you know, and I don't.
Wasn't terrible.
And I think if your whole the whole crux of your foundation is I need this card and nobody better take it, well then you need to play better because you cannot rely on that
one card
on things like that to come your way, you know. And if you're the kind of person that breaks your experience,
don't play games.
Yeah, don't play games. But yeah, let's.
I like how it's one action, right? And that's what makes it keep clipping along.
Well, it needs to be because that one action can take a long time.
Sure, yes.
Yeah. No, I was really impressed with this. Okay. I'm glad that it was like, oh, we need to play this. Okay, fine, I'll play it. And then was like, oh, it was really good. So, okay, let's do our final score. Dan, how does final score work?
Hi. We're all going to rate this game 1 through 10. We do use 0.5 so that there's more variability in our scoring. That way you can get all of our personal opinions. At the end, we will then average all the scores together so that there's one score we put on Board Game Geek Discord, stuff like that, because it's easier to just have one umbrella score by Board Game right now.
You tried to do that
What
without
he
resting.
said.
Without resting.
Dan did it without resting.
That's how he plays his games.
Trying to add a black mold mechanic to this game.
I'm just going to jump in first again like I did on Final Thoughts. So I just want to preface really quick because I don't mean it this way. I don't mean that not knowing your score while the game's going is a bad thing. Like,
I know we all jumped on that.
A lot of people
after.
jumped on that. Like I meant that as a bad thing.
Yeah.
I love a lot of games do that. I'm just saying that was one other thing that piled up on all the other things that just made the end game feel less impactful to me. At the end of the day, though, while I was playing this game, it was amazing. This was like a 9.5 while I was playing the game. I was like, this is incredible worker placement game. And then the end game just really deflated me. And that was pretty low. I'm still going to fall on an 8. And that is because when we played the first time, I immediately wanted to play again. I was like, that was just fascinating. And then when we played the second time, I immediately wanted to play again. Like, I want to play again. Like, it's set up right now, and I just want to play. I just want to build my tableau and work on my engine. And it is such a good, fulfilling feeling game. Like, I almost just feel like I won't score it next time. Who cares?
Who cares?
I just want to see my cool tableau.
Bob's like, I'll play with you.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I did really well.
But genuinely, I wholeheartedly recommend this if you like the Shem Phillips style worker placement games. I think this is a fantastic addition. I'm looking forward to seeing what other South Tigris games come out of this.
Mike.
Yeah, I obviously did not make it a secret that I like this game quite a bit. I do like this better than the other ones that I've played. And there's just so many mechanisms that work off of each other in this game that it really makes it a satisfying experience. And I've never played a tableau building game where I'm actually enjoying looking at people's cards to see what they've built. I've never done that in any game where I'm like paying attention. Oh, he's got a mountain in his, like I thought that was really cool because the cards actually will set up next to each other and create this scene. And I was fascinated by that. So cheers to making you interested in art while you're playing. That's not always something I pay attention to that much. So nod for that. I didn't touch on it in my final thoughts, but that whole area majority thing where each influence cube you have in there if you are the majority in that color, you'll get 3 points. So it's kind of like you're risking points by taking that,
Right.
but that instant beneficial action you get out of it is usually too much to resist.
It
You're like,
could be worth it.
I have to use that to be able to do this one specific card that I've got to have this turn to keep my engine going at the risk of losing points at the end of the game. I always think it's fascinating when you're risking points at the end of the game to continue building up your engine, which is what those
They
do.
do a
And
nice
I love
job
how
of
those
balancing
work
that.
a lot.
Make it worth it.
So
what's your final score,
my
Mike?
final
We already
score-
did your final thoughts.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to add that in. There's a lot of great mechanics here. I give it an 8.5. This is a really, really solid game with great mechanics. Found
Footage.
fantastic
Fettuccine.
art, fellas. I don't have a lot of complaints about this game. It's really, really good.
Right on.
All right.
Bobby.
Yep, I pretty much agree with Mike. Now just real quick, since he's talking about pulling these out in the air majority, it's only 3 points for the air majority for each of those ones. So that kind of is why it's such a low scoring game. Because otherwise, we're scoring 100 and some points. Well, these 3 aren't going to make much of a difference. But if you're only scoring 20 something, 40 something points, those 3 points in each one are going to make a difference. So I think it's just scaled down. It's like the difference between playing like a normal Final Fantasy and like a futuristic Final Fantasy. So like instead of like, I did 47 damage.
Well-
I did 4,700 damage.
Yeah, well, Dan wants these to be worth 3,000 points.
Yeah, we'll just add zeros to everything and he'll be happy.
I don't see the. I don't see the.
So why
And
don't
I'm
you
gonna
add a bunch of zeros to
I'm going to
your
add a
score?
0 to my score and give it an 8.50.
Right on.
85.0?
No.
Oh.
8.5.
He's adding zeros.
I added
just
0 to the end,
after
so
the
it looks like
decimal
so it
points.
looks like a bigger
Right,
number.
You're
looks
moving
bigger,
your
but it's the
decimal
same number.
point too, and
Wow, Bob, that's a great unique system that no one else on YouTube does. We should start doing that.
Okay.
So for me, it's an 8.5. I was really impressed with this. I thought it was a really good game. I don't feel the desire that Dan does to like play it right over like immediately, but I also wasn't let down by the ending. So I think the balance is sort of there. I was really impressed with the iconography, and I could recommend this game, this medium to heavyweight.
Yes.
You know, like right in between there, right? It's not heavy, but it's medium to heavy.
It's a little heavier than medium, not quite heavy.
Yeah. But really good.
medium well.
I was
Really
going to
good.
say medium well. I was trying not to so hard.
Really, it was really good. I had a good time playing it, and it was great.
All right.
That's great to hear.
So if we take all of our scores and we average them together, 8.4.
That's not bad.
It's pretty solid.
I'd say that's like barely a
solid.
recommend.
Yeah. Well, Board Game Rundown's average is about 7, so it's a slightly above average game according to us.
Yeah, no, this was really good. Bob, thank you for getting us to play this.
Yep.
And
I'm glad you guys did. Glad you guys liked it. So hit the table again. And
yeah, because again, like I'm aware of all the Shem Phillips games, but I've never really felt like drawn to play them. Now I feel like, well, I kind of need to play more Shem Phillips games.
even the setup and stuff's not that bad.
It's not bad. I will say maybe keep an eye out for when 3D printed inserts start coming around.
Something a little easier for that. Yeah, that'd be good.
And it doesn't take up much space on the table. Your tableau does a bit.
It can,
but
if you're good.
the board is so small as a whole, it doesn't take up that much space.
Sure. Yep, lots of good things to say. Not a lot of negatives.
Yep.
So, right on, guys. Anything else before we let
that's
these
it.
people move on with their day?
If Shem, if he ever wants to come to New Zealand and play test some games, I'd love to visit there again.
Wait, if he wants to come to New
If he
Zealand,
wants us to come to New Zealand and play test some games, I would love
sure.
to go.
Yeah,
Yes.
of course.
sure.
I would
I'll have
do
to
that.
get on the waiting
We're
list.
here for you.
Correct.
So he's a Kiwi, then.
Well,
huh?
guys, thanks for watching. From the Board Game Rundown, I've been Dan.
Anybody else? I've been Tim.
I was Bob.
I used to be Mike.
Oof.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
That was the worst ending ever, right?